Let us start the 35th session of Secrets of Spirituality. I have been mentioning the 8 parts of yoga which was prescribed by Patanjali, and here I am showing you the etymology of all these 8 parts. Yama is the word derived by a root word in Sanskrita called yam, and the verb for the same is yamayati, which belongs to the 10th conjugation, and this U indicates Ubhaya Pada. In Sanskrita language, all the root words or dhatus are classified into 10 ganas or 10 conjugations. And there are 2 sets of words called Parasmay Pada and Atmane Pada. If both are there, then it is called Ubhaya Pada. I will not get into the grammatical aspects of Sanskrita language here, but I just want to show you the greatness of construction of the words by means of the root words through the Sanskrita language. So that way, the meaning of Yama basically means to surround. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha. That means you should be surrounded by these 5. Next, coming to Niyama. Ni is the Upasarga for this same word Yama, same root word. So when Ni Upasarga comes in front of this word Yama, the meaning changes, that is to release. Shaucha, Santosha, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana. They are supposed to release us from the bondage. Now coming to Asana. Aste from the second conjugation, it is Atmanepada. Its meaning is to sit. And coming to Pranayama, this is a complicated word. There is a pra upasarga, then there is a upasarga, then there is aniti is the root word, an is the root word, aniti is the verb or kriyapada belonging to second gana parasmay pada. Now aniti means to live. Again, there is one more word called ayama. A is the upasarga, again yam, yamayati, and then yamayati, it becomes causal. Now, that way pranayama is a particular word which has multidimensional meaning. Later on I am going to show you the actual meaning of pranayama. Even though it is to live and to surround, I have put it inside parenthesis, because when the upasarga gets added to a particular word in Sanskrita, the meaning changes to some other dimension. Praparapara samanvava nirdirabhi vyadisudati nipratiparyapayah upaaditi vimshatiresha sakhe upasarga vidhim kathitam kavina. That way there are 22 upasargas in Sanskrita. When each one is added to a particular word in Sanskrita, the meaning will change. Next, coming to Pratyahara. Prati is one upasarga, A is one upasarga, Hru Harati is the root word, and its causal Harayati becomes Hara. I have put it in parenthesis because the meaning is going to change later on. Dharana word is the Lut Pratyaya derived from Dhru, Dharati, first conjugation, and it is Ubhaya Pada. It's causal. Dhru Dharati Dharayati. Dharayatis Lut Pratyaya is Dharana. And the meaning is to hold the mind. And Dhyana, Dhyai, Dhyayati, first conjugation, Parasmay Pada, meaning is to think of. And Samadhi, Sam, A, Adhi, fully into the one that is over oneself. Sam means fully, A means into. Fully into the one that is over oneself. Adhi means the one that is over oneself. That is, Samadhi means fully into the one that is over oneself. So now you know the meaning of Yama, that is to surround, Niyama to release, Asana to sit, Dharana to hold, Dhyana to think of, Samadhi fully into the one that is over oneself. Now let us see the full meaning of Pranayama and Pratyahara. Prana, ana basically means before life and into life. Pra means before. A means into. Because we have this pra, we have this a. So pra means before, a means into, and this aniti, from that ana came into picture, that ana means to live. That means prana basically means before life and into life. Please recall the basics which I had told when prana or the divine energy was produced by the basic intention of the infinite consciousness. So prana was there before life, and the same prana came into life. This is the greatness of the language Samskrita, where simply the upasarga, pra means before, a means into, then ana means life. So simply prana means before life, it was there and it came into life. Now what is the meaning of ayama? There is a, then yam, yamayati, then yamayati. From there it came as yama. Ayama means into the one that causes to surround. Yamayati means to cause to surround, because yamayati itself means to surround. Yamayati means to cause to surround. A means into. Whenever the upasarga a comes, that means into. So ayama itself means into the one that causes to surround. Which one is causing to surround? The self itself is causing itself to be surrounded by the 5 koshas. So pranayama is a special word. It is not just a breathing exercise, as is generally understood. Now you know that the meaning of prana is before life and into life. Ayama means into the one that causes to surround. So basically pranayama means into the one that is into life before life, and that which causes the enclosure of life. Because ayama means to surround. So please understand, the full meaning of pranayama is into the one, and that is into life before life, and that which causes the enclosure of life. Because ayama is into the one and it is causing to surround. And pra means before life, into life. So finally, pranayama is not just a breathing exercise. Breathing exercise is only the starting point of pranayama. When you work with your breath, you are working with air and working with lungs. That is, you are trying to understand the relationship between air and lungs as such. But not so actually. Because what is causing this breathing, that itself has kept a relationship between air and the body. Now oxygen is required by the red blood cell. Now whatever is the oxygen that is outside, if it has to reach the red blood cell, this breathing mechanism is already programmed inside the body or within the body. Now which one caused this particular breathing? Trying to find out the cause of breathing, or trying to attune oneself with the primordial energy that is causing the basic breathing activity. So that way pranayama has multiple meanings, multiple practices. Only in the beginning it is related to the breathing exercises. Later on, in the tantric part of yoga, pranayama basically means to attune yourself with the divine energy and to understand the presence of divine energy within the body. Ultimately, pranayama should lead to the arousal and the awakening of the dormant energy that is within the body, that is called as kundalini. Initially, pranayama is for energizing the physical body, but finally, pranayama is for the arousal of the dormant energy that is within. So, the full meaning of pranayama is into the one that is into life before life, and that which causes the enclosure of life. That was into life before life. The self was into the life before life existed, because it is the self which decided to become life. So that is the one which is causing the enclosure of life within the body. Otherwise, what is basically life? Life is there in the sthavara and in the jangama. That means life is there in the non-moving and the moving. Now, how do you really differentiate life from the non-living ones? How do you really define life with respect to the complete materials that are available on earth? When a body is compared with a tree, we say both have life. But when the same tree is compared with a rock, or the body is compared with a stone, we say stone and rock are non-living, whereas the body and tree are living. Because we see many normal growing activities happening within the body and within the tree, but we are not finding all that in a stone or in a rock. That means life is enclosed within the living bodies. So the basic full meaning of pranayama is into the one that is into life before life, and that which causes the enclosure of life. Actually, pranayama should gradually lead to the understanding of the divine energy or the divine mother herself. Adi Shakti, Adi Maya, Jagannmata herself. She herself is Kundalini inside the living bodies. Now coming to Pratyahara. Prati Ahara. So near to and then into. Prati means near to and A means into. Hru harati harayati means that causes to take. So Pratyahara basically means near to and then into the one that causes to take. Which one causes to take? The one which is within causes to take inputs from outside through the sense organs into the antakarana. Through the sense organs, inputs come into manaschitta buddhi ahankara. And which one is taking? The ego is taking the inputs from outside, which is causing the ego to take the inputs. The self is causing to take the inputs. So now, Pratyahara basically means near to and then into the one that causes to take. You can understand now how ingeniously, how intuitively these wordings have been constructed. That is how Sanskrit is called as one of the greatest languages, where words can be constructed for a particular feeling, to express a particular meaning. which may not be so easily possible with other languages. And we can appreciate Patanjali for defining the whole system of yoga using these 8 words, where especially pranayama and pratyahara are so complicated words with the combination of so many grammatical constructs. Let me proceed. In the body, we have something called pancha prana and we have something called upaprana. Prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. These are called pancha prana, 5 pranas, and there are something called upaprana. Naga, Kurma, Krikala, Devadatta, Dhananjaya. These are called upaprana. I am going to talk about upaprana after some time, maybe in the next session, may not be in today's session. Now this prana is basically present at the chest area. Apana is present below the navel region. Samana is present at the navel region. Udana is present at the head region. And Vyana is present at the hands and the legs. That is how they have divided the whole life energy which is there in the human body into basically 5 parts. The one which is near the chest, and the one which is at the belly, and the one which is at the stomach, and the one which is at the head, and the one which is at the legs and the hands. Now prana is because of the basic breathing, and that is nourishing the whole body, and its own portion goes down for helping in the excretory activities, that is called apana. And prana's portion only stays near the stomach for aiding the digestion and for absorbing the nutrition from the food, that is called samana. Now prana's portion only gets flown toward the head so that the complete brain and the sense organs which are at the head are functioning properly. That is called udana. And finally, some portion of the prana itself is going to move to the legs and to the hands, and it is nourishing legs and hands for all other physical activities. This way, even though prana is one, basically, in the body it is divided into 5 sets. Now we can see the etymology of this particular wording also. Prana, I have already told, pra-a-ana. Ana means to live. I have already shown you the root word there. Next we have apana, apa-a-ana. We have samana, sam-a-ana. We have udana, ut-a-ana. Now this is a sandhi here, ut-a-ana. And vyana, again we have vi-a-ana. Again this is a sandhi here. Actually all these 5 words are sandhis in Sanskrita. Now the meaning of prana is the one which is before life and is into life, because pra means before, a means into. Next, apa means what? Apa means which is away from life and is into life. Sam means the one which is fully life and is into life. Sam itself means fully. Ut means the one which is on life and is into life. Ut means above or on. Then vi means the one which is apart from life and is into life, because this a upasarga always means into life. Now look at the speciality of these meanings. You already know about prana. Coming to apana, it is at the belly region or below the navel region. Now which is away from life and is into life, means apana is contributing the expelling of the toxins from the body, the feces and the urine. Now they are away from life, but they are actually into life in the beginning. Again samana, which is fully life. It is the digestion and the absorption of nutritions. That means it is fully into life. Now ut means which is on life, means it is at the head region, which is on life or which is slightly above prana itself. Now vyana. V means apart from life. Life is exactly at the chest region, right? Life is basically, or prana is basically produced at the chest region by the absorption of oxygen into the lungs. Now these legs and hands are apart. So V means which is apart from life, and Upasarga says it is into life, means all are into life itself. All these five are into life itself with their distinct five functionalities. The bigger picture. One term yoga has, as per Shiva Samhita, it has basically four branches called Hatha Yoga, Laya Yoga, Mantra Yoga, Raja Yoga, which I have discussed already. Now, apart from Shiva Samhita, I have added one more here called Tantra Yoga. Tantra Yoga is basically part of Raja Yoga only, or the enhancement of Raja Yoga itself. In the Tantric scriptures, they call it as Rajadhiraja Yoga also. Tantra Yoga is basically called as Rajadhiraja Yoga. Initially practicing the Ashtanga Yoga, then gradually practicing the Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga, which are branches of Raja Yoga itself. Then by means of all these practices and understandings, by means of the comprehending of the self, gradually trying to attain salvation and trying to help others also to attain salvation, that is basically called Tantra Yoga. Tanoti Trayate iti Tantraha means the one which protects the body itself is called Tantra Yoga. Realizing the self with the body itself is basically Tantra Yoga. We had a great writer in Kannada literature called Satyakama. He was a great writer also. He was a great practitioner of Tantra Yoga also. You may already be knowing the famous scholar called Bandhanje Govindacharya. He is titled as Vidyavachaspati. Strangely, Bandhanje Govindacharya's daughter herself became a disciple of Satyakama. Bandhanje Govindacharya was a great follower of Madhva philosophy or Madhva philosophy, but his daughter turned out to be studying Akka Mahadevi's Vachanas, and she diverted her studies from the Sanskrit literature or the Madhva literature. She did not study them at all. Instead, she was influenced by the writings or the company of Satyakama, and she learned tantric practices to some extent from Satyakama. Gradually, she started studying the Sharana philosophy. Now, this Satyakama has written many great books on Tantra Yoga itself. In one of his books called Tantra Yoni, he says a specific Kannada sentence: Yeruvudu Tantra, Yerade iruvudu Atantra, Yeri nilluvudu Swatantra, Yerade iruvudu Paratantra, ಏರುವಿಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಎನ್ನುವುದು ಕುತಂತ್ರ. Let me tell the meaning. ಏರುವುದು ತಂತ್ರ. Rising up or elevating oneself is tantra. ಏರದಿರುವುದು ಅತಂತ್ರ. Not trying to elevate is called atantra. ಏರಿ ನಿಲ್ಲುವುದು ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರ. Elevating oneself up and staying there is ಸ್ವತಂತ್ರ or freedom. ಏರಲಾರೆನೆನ್ನುವುದು ಪರತಂತ್ರ. That means I cannot elevate myself up. Exhibiting that particular weakness is called paratantra or dependency. ಏರುವಿಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಎನ್ನುವುದು ಕುತಂತ್ರ. There is nothing called elevating up oneself or there is nothing called rising up oneself. Such argument is called kutantra or cunningness. This is a set of beautiful sentences which Satyakama has written. I told all these sentences just for you to get an idea about what is the meaning of Tantra Yoga. Almost always the practices of Tantra Yoga or the discussion of Tantra Yoga remains secret. Why? The reason is, it is only between the teacher and the disciple. It is only between the Guru and the Shishya. Because between Guru and Shishya, between the master and the disciple, there is complete transparency. There is no secret as such. So, these things cannot be discussed with the public as such, because public hide lot of things. In general, the normal public keep on remaining acting morning till night, right? The normal, common, ordinary human beings, they are ignorant of all these things, and morning till evening, it is, for them, it is like struggling for existence and survival of the fittest. For them. And their knowledge or opinion about life is something drastically different. They are not near any spiritual domain at all. The approach towards life itself is not at all spiritual at all. So when the majority psychology, when the major psychology is like that, how can sacred things be discussed directly with the normal public? Instead of understanding, they will misunderstand. That is why many holy things will remain secret only, and they will be revealed only for the people who can understand. That is how Tantra Yoga is kept at the last. It is only for the people who really want to have such divine contact, or who really want to uncover themselves to be in one with the divine. So you can see the further branches in the lineage of Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri, or in whatever way my Guru Yoga Shree Narsimurti has taught me. In the Laya Yoga practices, we have another 3 sets called Hamsa Yoga, Nada Yoga and Japa Yoga. These are special practices which are basically meant for dissolving the thoughts in the mind itself. Now, as I already told you, Raja Yoga again can be having 3 sets called Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga and Karma Yoga. And by means of these 3, gradually we can correct ourselves, we can refine ourselves, we can purify ourselves. Only after that we can aspire for Tantra Yoga, not before that. Now this is the bigger picture. So in general, I used to say to my students that I can only initiate you into yoga. When this is going to end, neither I know nor you know. When students come to me, I can only initiate people into the path of yoga. That's all. When exactly yoga is going to happen, or when exactly liberation is going to happen, whether it is in this life or is it in next life or it is later on, neither I know nor you know. Because it is always individual. Liberation is always individual. Moksha, Kaivalya, Nirvana is always an individual choice. But until then, you can see that it is a very vast science where practices never end, theoretical discussions never end, and learning never ends until liberation. So that way, the science of yoga is really a very vast field. Please recall the sayings which Dr. Swami Gitanandagiri has told about yoga. Yoga is the mother of all sciences. Yoga is the mother of all religions. That is what he had told, which I had discussed in the previous session. With this, I am coming to the end of the fourth set of slides. In fact, I gave the basics of the yogic practices in the second set of slides, and now I have summarized it to some extent in the fourth set of slides. Now I will be moving on to the last set of slides, and when I complete the last set of slides, I will be completing this particular presentation on secrets of spirituality. So let me start the last set of slides. We have been discussing secrets of spirituality, and I have named this set of slides as Vikasa Vidya. Vikasa means evolution, Vidya means knowledge. Vikasa Vidya means knowledge of evolution. Let me tell you a small story now. There was a poet called Bharavi. This Bharavi was a gifted poet, and he used to write poems ad hoc, spontaneously. But he never used to exhibit his poems to the public. And in general, public will not be aware of the greatness of particular poems. This Bharavi was very poor because he did not use his talent to earn money. He never used to sell his poems. So Bharavi's wife was always complaining at home that you write such meaningful, great poems. Why don't you go to king, and why don't you show all your poems to the king? King will actually understand the value of your poems, not the people who are surrounding you. Your neighbors will not understand, and your family members also will not understand. Your friends also will not understand the value of your poems. Why don't you take your poems to the king, and why don't you get some gifts from king so that our poverty can be eradicated? We can live a comfortable life. At least if king understands the value of your poems, king will give you some amount of money, and that can increase the standard of our life. But Bharavi used to say to his wife that I am not going to sell my poems. I am going to take these poems to show to the king. My poems are not meant for earning money. And this went on for a few months or a few years. One day, Bharavi's wife became so much upset because there was nothing even to cook food. There were no food grains. So then Bharavi's wife told her husband, you give me one leaflet of the poem which you have written, and you don't go to the king. Let me go to the king. Let me show that particular leaflet. Because in the olden days, all the poems were written on palm leaves. Tadapatra. So, you give me at least one leaflet. I'll take it to the king. I'll show it to him. And I'll get a gift from the king. That gift let me take for myself. And let me buy some food grains, at least to cook food, to take care of you and me and our family. So because of her pressure, Bharavi wrote something on a palm leaf and gave it to her. Now Bhargavi's wife took this palm leaf to the king. But the time when she went to meet the king was in a hurry. He was collecting his army and he was about to protect his kingdom because the enemy had attacked it near the border. So king was in a mood of departure. When Bhargavi's wife went there, king took the palm leaf and he stuck it on a nail somewhere in the bedroom or in his palace, and he told to his minister to give some money to that lady, Bhargavi's wife. And he told to Bhargavi's wife that after I come back from the war, I'll read the poem, then I'll get back to you. At least she got some money from the minister. Bhargavi's wife became happy. She took that money back to home for buying food grains. King stuck this palm leaf on a particular nail in his bedroom and he came out of the palace. He went along with this army and the commanders to attack the enemies who were causing trouble near the border of the kingdom. Now, the war near the border went on for a few years. The war did not end immediately. War went on for a few years. The king's minister was taking care of the kingdom here. After about 1 or 2 years, or maybe more, king finally defeated the enemy. When king finally defeated the enemy went back. Enemy could not conquer the kingdom. So king came back to the palace. When the king came back to the palace, it was night time or early morning. So when king came, he entered into his bedroom. He saw that in his bedroom, on the bed, adjacent to his wife, one young man was sleeping. Immediately king became so angry, he thought, my wife or the queen has been having an illicit affair with some other person. King thought that way. He was so enraged and he took out his sword and he wanted to kill both of them at that instant. So he raised his sword up. When he raised his sword up, that sword touched the nail wherever he had stuck that palm leaf. And that palm leaf came down by the touch of the tip of the sword. Now he was distracted. He was about to kill both his wife and the man who was adjacent to the queen. He was distracted because of this palm leaf movement. He picked up that palm leaf. On the palm leaf, there was Bhargavi's poem written. In that poem, there was one sentence. One should not take decisions in haste. That was the meaning of the sentence. Any decision taken should not be taken in a hurry. Should not be taken in a rage. Should not be taken instantly. Any decision should not be taken instantly. That means intellectuals should take decisions after a careful, logical conclusion. That was the meaning of that particular poem's sentence. Now, after reading that sentence, king kept the sword down and he gradually patted his wife. And when she woke up, he asked her, what is this happening in the palace? And who is this young man adjacent to whom you are sleeping? Now, queen immediately woke up. She touched her husband's feet. Then she told, I am so happy that you came back alive from the war after few years. Now, until now, your minister was taking care of the kingdom. But by now, our young son has become a man. In the last few years, our young son has become an adolescent, but he was having a habit of sleeping adjacent to me only even in his childhood. Now also he is sleeping adjacent to me only just to protect me at night. He is our son whom you could not recognize because now he has grown up. Now king thought, what a great mistake I would have done in a hurry if I had taken a decision to kill both of them in a rage, in a haste. Now king thought, because of this palm leaf, today I did not take that particular decision. It is my son whom I could not recognize. And next day, king called for Bharavi's wife, and later on he called Bharavi also. Then king congratulated Bharavi for writing all those great poems, and king also thanked Bharavi that because of your particular poem, One Palm Leaf, I took a patience at that time and I did not kill my wife and my son. Otherwise, I was in the mood of war itself or battle itself. And in the same fit of rage, I had come home. And if it was not your palm leaf, I would have done the greatest mistake in my life. My dear friends, this is a true incident which happened in the life of the great poet Bharavi. Why I told this story to you now? Vikasa Vidya, knowledge of evolution. Mind requires continuous refinement, continuous evolution. Living itself is a great skill. I keep remembering the appreciation which I got from the angelic trance of Sadhana Madam at Manipal. I am going to tell about it more in detail later on. But I got an appreciation there. She told me in Kannada that ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬದುಕ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ನೀನು ಮಾತ್ರ ಬಾಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀಯಾ. I don't know how to translate this sentence into English. She told me, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಬದುಕ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ನೀನು ಬಾಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀಯಾ. All others are just living for the sake of living, but you are not living that way. So that was the greatest appreciation which I received. And I hope I have evolved mentally also, which is basically the purpose of this human life itself. Without mental evolution, all human beings are basically as good as animals. Because God has already completed the physical evolution cycle. Now it is the human being's responsibility to mentally evolve. Otherwise, evolution has no purpose here. God has given certain amount of freedom for the human beings to evolve by themselves, by learning about themselves. If that does not happen, this evolution from the apes into human beings is of no serious contribution to nature at all. So then, God should think that I created all types of Udbhija, Svedaja, Andaja, Jarayuja, and everywhere they have been following the laws which have been framed by me only. And I gave a little amount of freedom for these human beings to evolve further. But instead of evolving further, what are they doing with themselves? So God should not think one day that this experiment with the human beings is basically a failure. Whereas the experiment with the peacock was successful. Experiment with the weaver bird was successful. Experiment with the butterfly was successful. Experiment with all other creatures was successful. The experiment with these human beings, should it be unsuccessful? This is the question for human beings themselves, that whether they are going to evolve on their own or not. Everyone should seriously question themselves. Let me continue. The self has evolved as you through the efforts of itself. You already know the meaning of this sentence now. The self has evolved as you through the efforts of itself. From Udbijja, Svedaja, Andaja, Jarayuja, now Manuja. That means the self has evolved as you through the efforts of itself. Now, you evolve through own effort so as to understand yourself. The problem with the human beings is they don't understand their own self. There are a lot of illusions about oneself. So, the self has evolved as you through the efforts of itself. You evolve through own effort. That is the freedom given, that is the free will given by the self to you. How you use that freedom or free will is up to you. So now, Vikasa Vidya means you evolve through own effort so as to understand yourself. Once you understand, once you comprehend, once you realize, then that is Advaita. There is no duality. There is no individuality also. Just look at this picture. God. One sparrow is asking a crow, "Do you believe in God?" And the crow is saying, "You mean like a great crow in the sky who watches over us?" "Sure, I guess," the crow answers. Like the sparrow asks again, "You think God is a crow?" Now the crow says, "Of course, what else would he be?" Now the sparrow says, "I don't know. A sparrow maybe?" Now crow says, "Psst, a sparrow? That is dumb." Now again sparrow says, "Hey, yeah." Now the crow flies away. When the crow flies away, the sparrow says, "You will burn in sparrow hell." Sparrow thinks God is a big sparrow. Crow thinks God is a big crow. God is neither sparrow nor crow. God is the very self which created sparrow, which created crow. God is within both of them. Both of them do not understand. And finally the sparrow thinks, "You will burn in sparrow hell." What if the crow is asked? Crow will think sparrow will burn in a crow hell. This is basically a limitation of the mindset, where realization has not yet happened. Only the belief system is conditioned and the mindset is not uncovered. But I hope by now all of you have understood the basics, and by now you will not remain a sparrow, you will not remain a crow as such. At least that is my hope. Because we are into the 35th session now. In all the previous 34 sessions, I think now you have the basic realization of life, you have the basic realization of the self. Later on, it is up to you to improve yourself and to evolve yourself. Endless possibilities exist just beyond your belief system. You should neither be having the belief system of that sparrow, you should neither be having the belief system of that crow. You should neither be having the belief system of the Hindu, nor the belief system of the Christian, nor the belief system of the Muslim, nor the belief system of the Jain, nor the belief system of the Buddha, nor the belief system of the Yahudi, nor the belief system of the Farsi, in whatever way, nor the belief system of the Sikh, in whatever way. Now the question is, All those belief systems were meant for making the people realize the truth. But people were stuck in those belief systems and they kept on thinking it is their own belief systems. Now, you will have to get away from all these belief systems. Now, you may ask me, if that is the case, why did you discuss all those faith systems there in the middle? Yes, I discussed because all those faith systems are outcomes of the holy spiritual masters' teachings. All those faith systems came into existence by a great intention of some holy spiritual master. That way they are all great. But what people did with all those faith systems? Did people learn all those faith systems that they are all basically ekam sadvipraha bahudha vadanti? That is why now I say you will have to grow beyond those faith systems. Just like the Rigveda sentence says, Ano bhadraha kratavo yantu vishwataha. Let us learn all the good things from all the faith systems. Let us not create any more differences now. My sincere feeling is, a Hindu should become a better Hindu. A Christian should become a better Christian. A Muslim should become a better Muslim. A Sikh should become a better Sikh. A Jain should become a better Jain. A Bauddha should become a better Bauddha. A Farsi should become a better Parsi. A Yehudi should become a better Yehudi. Ultimately, everybody should become at least atheists or theists. Now, with more and more of education, with more and more of information, there are people who call themselves as atheists also. They will say that there is no God, there is no need of God. Please remember the story of Laplace and Napoleon. Now that is again their own belief system. People who deny God, they have their own crooked logic or their own twisted logic to prove that there is no God. Now that becomes their own belief system. There was a sect earlier, even in this land of Bharata. They were called Charvakas. They were called Charvakas or Lokayatas. This Charvaka used to say, Yavat jivet sukham jivet, ranam kritva ghritam privet, bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutaha. Charvaka used to say, Yavat jivet sukham jivet. As long as we live, we should live happily, comfortably. Ranam kritva ghritam pivet. Even if you make a loan, you should drink ghee. You should consume ghee. In the olden days, ghee used to be a very expensive item. So he used to say, take a loan and consume ghee. Don't repay the loan, no problem. Keep consuming the ghee. You enjoy. The people who have given loan to you, let them suffer. You don't pay back the money also. You enjoy. That was the psychology of Charvaka. And Charvaka used to say, Bhasmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutaha. If at all this body turns into ashes, later on this body will not come back again. So you should enjoy as long as you have the body. The Charvaka never understood that death is only for the physical body. For the self, there is no death. For the chitta, there is no death. Memory continues and karma continues. As Charvaka did not understand these secrets of the self, Charvaka had his own belief system, and his followers also were called as Charvakas or Lokayatas or Nastikas, atheists. Now all of these sects of people, they have their own belief system. But self-realization is beyond all the belief systems. The real truth is beyond all the belief systems. I'll again tell you the sentence told by Deepak Chopra. Religion is believing in someone else's experience. Spirituality is believing in one's own experience. Or to say in other words, religion is believing in the sentences told by others. Spirituality is understanding the sentences which come from within. So there are endless possibilities that are existing just beyond your belief system. You should not be stuck like this sparrow or the crow, where you are surrounded by your own belief system, which is keeping you limited for this life. How to obtain knowledge? Ultimately, knowledge is what? Knowledge is collection of information. But what information? Information which can unravel the truth. By means of the collection of information, understanding of life must be possible. So for understanding life, knowing is required. Now, how to obtain knowledge? There are two sources for obtaining knowledge: external sources and internal sources. External sources are by means of the sense organs. Internal sources are by means of the antakarana. In most of the cases, internal sources will not be really evident in the beginning, because internal sources have to be gradually accumulated that way. Until then, we are dependent on the external sources. Which are these external sources? Books and teachers are the external sources. Intellect and intuition are the internal sources. Now, so many spiritual masters have come and gone on this earth, and all the teachings of the spiritual masters are written through books, and the books are available now. So the first external source is abundant books that are available in the spiritual domain. Now, whenever you read books, you may not understand all the books as such. If people can read the books and if they can understand, no need of schools, no need of colleges. People can get their primary education, secondary education, and even the graduate education sitting at home just by reading books and clearing the examinations. But that is not possible, right? That is where we require teachers. So even in the spiritual domain, even though abundant books are available, all the books cannot be understood by the aspirants. That is where teachers are required. So the two external sources are books and teachers. Now these two external sources should gradually develop the internal sources. The internal sources are intellect and intuition. You need not believe every book, or you need not believe all the books. Now, you have to believe your teachers, because through teachers, you will clarify whether what to believe, what not to believe. That is where intellect will be refined. Now, once your intellect is refined, gradually you will develop your own intuitive abilities. When you develop your own intuitive abilities, later on you are independent. Remember the sentence told by Satyakama: Eruvudu tantra, eri nilluvudu swatantra. For elevating yourself up, you require somebody's guidance, somebody's help. You require learning from books also. You require learning from teachers also. And you require your own intellectual abilities also. Now, once you elevate yourself up, later on there is nothing called up and down. There is equanimity. There is Advaita. You are one with the divine. When you are one with the divine, you will develop the abilities of intuition. In fact, the same water is inside every fish. That way, there need not be any differences between fishes. If fishes develop differences among themselves, that means they are lacking the intuitive abilities. When once you develop intuitive abilities, then that is the contact with the divine which is going to be permanent with you, and then you have tapped into the abundant source of knowledge at that time. So until you develop intuitive abilities, even the external resources like books and teachers are required, even the internal resource like intellect is required. But if you do not develop the intuitive abilities, you will remain incomplete in this life, and you will remain incomplete even in future lives until you develop the intuitive abilities. And the intuitive abilities are possible with anyone and everyone for that matter. That requires complete submission into the divine will. That requires immense faith on the self. That is a rare case with the modern human beings. So, these are the sources of knowledge. Now you can see this picture, the ancient Indian learning system or the Gurukul system. Now it was a one-man university at that time. Even now, Gurukul system is supposed to be one-man university only. Which means one teacher will have the knowledge of many subjects, and for all the queries of the disciples or the students, this one teacher is enough. Unlike our present system, in which we have different types of teachers in primary school, in high school, even in college, because the present education system is more of materialistic type, where we cannot have expertise in all the subjects. Now, in our engineering course itself, in the electronics and communication engineering itself, we have so many courses to teach. Every semester we have 6 courses. So, for 8 semesters, we have nearly 48 courses to 50 courses. Now, one teacher cannot teach all these 50 courses because they are of different disciplines, they are of different engineering domains, where one person cannot have expertise everywhere, because they are all basically materialistic knowledge. Engineering is basically usage of the materials only, right? So that way, it is a materialistic education. Whereas in the spiritual education, if one person understands the body, mind and soul, then that is enough. For whatever problems that occur to the body, the Guru knows. Whatever problems that occur to the mind, the Guru knows. Whatever problems that are stuck with the soul, the Guru knows. Because this body is made up of Panchakosha. Now the secrets of the Panchakosha or the 5 sheets, Guru knows. Now that is enough. Because that is the true education. Whatever other education is there, that is for livelihood. Whereas this education of Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya or self-realization, this is for life itself. That way in the ancient Indian learning system, it was a Gurukul system where there used to be only one Guru who used to be an expert in all these subjects which are all relevant to life itself. There would have been many subjects then also. Shiksha, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Chandas. These are called Vedanga. Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta. These are called Shat Shastra. They are all different as such, but they are all connected to the discussion of life itself. So that way, one Guru used to have the knowledge of all these subjects. That was the specialty of Gurukul system, and that is the specialty of Gurukul system even now. You see this in this picture, how many holy people have come on this earth. This picture contains mostly the people who were in India. Now, if you can recognize some of them, I'll be very happy. Even I don't recognize all of them as such, but at least I recognize some of them. This is Sridhar Swami. This is Shirdi Sai Baba. And Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Vivekananda, Guru Nanak. Then you know this Gautama Buddha, Raghavendra Swami of Mantralaya, Aurobindo of Pondicherry, then Ramana of Tiruvannamalai, then Paramahamsa Yogananda, Avadhuta Nityananda of Kanjangad, Adi Shankara, then Yukteswar Giri, Guru of Paramahamsa Yogananda, Lahiri Mahashaya, Guru of Yukteswar Giri, then Jesus Christ, then Mahavatar Babaji, Vedavyasa at the top, Dattatreya below. And there are other saints, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Brahma Chaitanya Gondavalekar. I don't recognize all the pictures here, but at least some of them I recognize. There are many other holy spiritual masters, only some of them are being shown here. So, there are abundant masters who have been coming here, and they will be coming even in future. And there are abundant resources available. All the holy teachings are preserved as books. So, for the people who want to learn, lifelong you can keep learning. For the next 10 lives also you can keep learning. That much of resources available, especially in India. Especially in India, the amount of spiritual literature that is available in India, that is not available in any other country on this earth. That is the greatness of this country, India. So I am showing you the picture only to indicate how many spiritual masters have been here in this land of India itself. Let us continue. The cause of life is the self, and the cause of life is basically Atman. Atman is Achala, non-moving. Just like water is Achala, non-moving. Inside water, everything else is moving. Inside the ocean, everything else is moving. Ocean is non-moving. That way, cause of life is the self, that is the Atman, that is non-moving. And this Atman is basically a divine ego. It is spiritual. We call it as Daiva. Even Atman or self has its own intention to become life. So then we say it has an ego, because ego is basically an intention or a desire. Now you may ask, does God have desire? Yeah, out of God's desire only he became life, right? Out of his own desire he became Udbijja, Svedaja, Andaja, Jarayaja, right? So that there was a desire with the God. So this ego has multiple dimensions now. Here I am calling the self as divine ego. Later on, let me come down before discussing the other things. Now this cause of life or the self initially created non-moving life forms. They are cells, then plants, then trees. From the plant cells, gradually plants and trees. And these are sthavara. They are not achala, but they are sthavara. In the sense, they are also non-moving, but we cannot say they are non-moving. Even when a tree is growing, even when a plant is growing, actually it is a minute movement only. The growth of roots, the growth of leaves, the growth of branches is basically a movement only. The only thing is that the body of the tree is staying there only. That is why it is called as sthavara. and it is not achala. Self is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. Hence, self is not moving. But cells, plants and trees are non-moving life forms. For example, Jivaja and Udbhija. The basic cells, living cells, can be called Jivaja because a cell will divide itself and becomes two cells. A cell will give rise later to two cells. That way, division itself is the multiplication there. 2 will become 4, 4 will become 8, 8 will become 16 that way. So it is called as Jivaja. Next, plants and trees, as you already know, they are Udbhija. Later on, this cause of life, the self, also produces moving life forms. Worms, fishes, amphibians, insects, reptiles, birds, mammals, finally humans. Now we call them as Jangama, means moving bodies. Sthavara were stationary bodies. These Jangama are Svedaja, Andaja, Jarayuja, then Manuja. You already know about it. Now in the case of non-moving life forms or Sthavara, there is an ego there, but that is a natural ego. The ego by means of which the leaves grow, ego by means of which the flowers bloom, ego by means of which the creeper goes around a tree. Now that is physical, and that we call it as Prakriti. So can we say nature has ego? In nature, do these plants and trees have ego? Yes, they have. A root can go down and in search of water when it goes down, if there is a stone in between, the root grows around the stone. That means root knows that it has to search for water. Even though you can say that root is nothing but the collection of plant cells, but that root has got its own consciousness to go down in search of water. Now, who causes the root to go down? And who causes the leaf to grow up? And who causes the flowers to bloom out? We name it as natural ego or Prakriti. Now, when it comes to moving life forms, each of these living bodies have an individual ego. Whereas for plants and trees, we cannot say that each plant or each tree has got an individual ego. There is no individual ego with plants and trees. So then we say it is a natural ego. But when it comes to individual bodies, then each individual body has got an individual ego. Now that individual ego is of chemical nature, because it is basically a biochemical reaction happening inside the brains. Inside each brain, ego is constructed and ego is dissolved in a systematic fashion. In the sense, when you go to sleep, you will not have ego. When you are woken up, you are having ego. Means that ego is systematically constructed after waking up or slightly before waking up, and it is systematically dissolved after going to sleep. That means the individual ego is of chemical nature, and then we call it as Vyakti. So all the moving life forms have this individual ego, which is of chemical nature, and all the non-moving life forms have this natural ego, which is of physical nature. And the cause of life, the self itself, is having a divine ego, which is of spiritual nature. Now we call the source of life as Daiva, the transformation of non-moving life form as Prakriti, and the further transformation into the moving life forms is called Vyakti. That is where I told you this ego will have 3 dimensions now. Now just look at this table and understand. When you are in the awakened state, you have this individual ego. But now inside your body, you have a natural ego also. How? When you cut your nail, the nail grows. When you cut your hair, the hair grows. How those decisions are taken? Who is taking those decisions? You are not taking the decisions, but your body is taking the decisions. That means in your body there is this natural ego, which is of physical nature, and due to which the internal functionalities of the body are happening, which are not under your control actually. Only consuming food is coming under your individual ego, where you decide to consume food or not. Now, the digestion of the food is not under your control. Absorption of the nutrients into the blood, that is not under your control. What to make each material of this particular absorbed nutrient is not under your control. Then that is under natural ego's control. And finally, both this individual ego and the natural ego are under the control of the divine ego, which planned all these mechanisms as such. All the chemical and physical mechanisms or physical chemical reactions are all planned by a bigger ego or an infinite ego, that is the divine ego. So when you are in the awakened state, you are having this individual ego. When you are in the dreaming state, you are having this natural ego. When you are in the sleeping state, you are actually having the divine ego. The individual ego is caused in the brain. The natural ego is caused in the body. The divine ego is part of the self itself. The divine ego is the one which is actually ruling the brain and the body together. Natural ego is part of the body, individual ego is part of the brain, but both are part of the divine ego itself. That is where Adi Shankara used to give a lot of importance for the discussion of sleep instead of the discussion of awakened state. He used to discuss sleep with the metaphysical angle. He used to discuss sleep with the spiritual domain. Because as long as you are connected with your sensory organs, you are ruled by individual ego, and where you will keep thinking you are separate, you are different, but that is only with the individual ego. How you have stored such information in your memory, based on whatever you store in your memory, that is going to make you think later on. Whatever is stored in your memory, that is going to become a further resource or further information. I cannot say resource, further information for your life later on. But the natural ego is beyond this individual ego. In the natural ego, it is the basic functionality of the body itself. Now that is where, again, in the psychological domain, these are called as conscious, subconscious and unconscious dimensions. Individual ego is the conscious dimension, natural ego is the subconscious dimension, and divine ego is the unconscious dimension. Because you are unconscious of the self, but actually self itself is causing the construction of the individual ego itself. It is because of the self only this natural ego and individual ego are coming into picture. That is where Adi Shankara kept on teaching about Advaita. Everything is connected that way. Everything is within one only. Neha nana asti kinchana was told in the Upanishads. Na iha nana asti kinchana. The meaning is, there is no different existence here at all. Na iha nana asti kinchana. Even a smallest differential existence is not there. Whole ocean is one water. There is no difference in the existence of water in the ocean at all. Only with the fishes there are differences. So only with the individual ego there are differences. In nature also there is no difference. In the divinity also there is no difference. Now, how to realize this truth? How to understand this truth? It may feel as if this is complicated. Actually, it is not complicated. Provided you keep recalling all the basics which were discussed earlier, this is not complicated. This is conclusive now. I am concluding all the learnings which have happened till now. So now, individual ego is of chemical nature, natural ego is of physical nature, and the divine ego is of spiritual nature. So in that case, how do spiritual masters realize these things? They have realized these things. In the practice of yoga, we call it as yoga. In different faith systems, there may be different terminologies. I have not studied all those other faith systems in detail because there is no use in studying all those faith systems in detail. It is better that we have a general knowledge of all the faith systems, but we should finally go deeper into one particular faith system. I have gone deeper into the path of yoga itself. That is enough for me. So that is where I say, in the practice of yoga, if you get into dhyana, what is actually happening? If you get into dhyana, dhyanam nirvishayam manaha. If you can control all the thoughts, if you can nullify all the thoughts, gradually you will understand that how your individual ego is being constructed. And then you will understand that how your individual ego is actually causing you this action and inaction, or how your individual ego is making you to behave the way in which you are behaving. Because the ego is going to pick up from your memory, and whatever is being picked up from the memory, based on the memory recall, further activity will happen using your sensory organs and using your motor organs, using jnanendriyas and karmendriyas. And those activities will again enhance further storage into the memory. And whatever you store in the memory, whatever you recall from the memory, based on that, action, reaction will keep on happening. And that will again get stored in the memory. Again, it will get recalled from the memory. It's all the play of the individual ego. As long as the individual ego is existing, this action and inaction are going to happen. Now, how to gradually overcome this particular action-reaction cycle? That is where meditation or dhyana is a great boon to the humankind. By means of careful controlling of the memory recall or the memory storage, by means of careful introspection, it is possible to conquer the effects of individual ego. When you conquer the effects of individual ego, gradually, someday, if individual ego ceases to exist, then you will get into the next state of natural ego. Now, from individual ego, gradually, when you get into the next state of natural ego, now that is called Savikalpa Samadhi. You know that dhyanas Next step is samadhi. Through the meditative processes, if at all, gradually you will nullify your individual ego. Which means when you do not care for the individual ego or you do not use this individual ego, it ceases to exist. This individual ego always requires a memory recall or a memory storage or an action and reaction cycle. When these do not exist, the individual ego does not exist because it has no task. Individual ego always requires a task with the sensory organs and the motor organs together. It requires memory recall and memory storage together. It will always work with the individual brain. Now through dhyana, if you can conquer this individual ego, gradually you will move into another dimension that is called Savikalpa Samadhi, where you are now part of natural ego. Now that is what is Savikalpa Samadhi. What is the meaning of Savikalpa Samadhi? Sa-vikalpa. Vikalpa means choice. Vikalpa also means doubt. Sa-vikalpa. Samadhi. You are with the higher one. I have already told you the meaning of Samadhi. Samadhi means with the higher one. You are with the higher one, but you still have a doubt. What am I now? If you still have a doubt, you will come back to dhyana. That means again individual ego will be constructed because you have made a choice to have this individual ego now. It is up to you to move to the other side or to the other side. So vikalpa means you still have a choice. The choice is to come back to individual ego or to move up to divine ego. It is again your own choice. It is the choice of the fish to realize water. Water is open always to the fish. If the fish wants, it can come back to its own body and it can again get into its individual ego. If the fish wants, it can again go back to water and it can lose its own individual ego. It is up to the aspirant to make this choice. That is why you see such a great wording they have put in Sanskrita. Sa vikalpa. Vikalpa means choice. Vikalpa also means doubt. Doubt means now also you may doubt whatever I say to you, right? That is, doubt is happening because you have this individual ego. You still may not have complete faith on my words. You still may be thinking, this Arvinda is blabbering some things, some meaningless things. We are unable to understand. This all may be false also. Who knows? That is the cause of your individual ego. That is your memory which is making you think like that. Because you have stored ignorance in your memory means maybe through your own choice or maybe through social programming. Let us say ignorance is there in your memory only means now again that is your choice. Now that is called sa-vikalpa. Every night when you go into dreaming state, actually that part is basically savikalpa samadhi. Now in the dreaming state, you have two choices, either to go into the sleeping state or to come back to the awakened state. Again that is sa-vikalpa, you have a choice. But now in the process of meditation, when you get into savikalpa samadhi, if you have a doubt, you will never get into nirvikalpa samadhi. In the Bhagavad Gita it is told, ajnascha shraddadhanascha samshayatma vinashyati naloko naparaha nasukham samshayatmanaha. The person who is having a doubt, he will never have peace either here or there, wherever, iha or para, in the material plane or in the spiritual plane. That person will never have What do we say? Naloko naparaha nasukam samshayatmanaha. He will not have peace neither here nor there. So that vikalpa is doubt. Let us say when you meditate itself, if you have a doubt, you will never be able to reach into savikalpa samadhi also. Because your own memory will not allow you. Because you are recalling those things from your memory, it will not allow you to get into savikalpa samadhi also. That is why Adi Shankara says, Shat Sampatti. Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Uparati, Shraddha, Samadhana. Now he says, Shama, mental calmness. Dama, bodily control. Titiksha, you should have eagerness. Uparati, you should have a control of all the antakarana. Shraddha, you should have a devotion, you should have a faith. If you do not have a faith, let us say if you have a doubt, you will never go from dhyana to samadhi also. You may think something danger may happen. I may lose myself. I may not wake up later on. I may be dead later on. These are all the doubts. I should tell you, my dear friends, every night when you go to sleep, you are dead only. You are physically alive, mentally dead. You don't know that you exist when you go to sleep also. For many people, sleep is basically a bodily rest. Right, sleep may be basically bodily rest. But where are you during sleep? Are you there during sleep? You are not there. Body is still there. You are not there. So what does it mean? Every sleep, every night is basically a mental death. Because the individual ego gets constructed next day morning when you wake up. Or individual ego gets constructed during dreaming once again. And that is caused by the natural ego itself. It is the natural ego which is constructing and destructing the individual ego systematically. Now, if you don't have devotion, if you don't have faith, then dhyana is also not possible. Savikalpa samadhi is also not possible. That is why Adi Shankara says, Shama, Dama, Titiksha, Uparati, Shraddha, devotion, dedication, faith. If you don't have faith, I cannot put faith into you. Whether to have faith or not to have faith is again your own choice. But Adi Shankara says, a disciple should have faith. In sadhana chatushtaya, viveka, vairagya, shat sampatti, mumukshatva. I am telling the third one, shat sampatti. 6 wealths. 6 wealths are these 6 only. Last one is samadhana. Adhana. Steadiness. Samadhana basically means complete steadiness with the oneself. If these are there, then Savikalpa Samadhi is easy. Otherwise, for anyone and everyone, Savikalpa Samadhi is impossible. Okay, this may be too high for you, but I have to discuss this. That's why I have kept all these things at the end. After discussing all the basics, I thought, let me discuss all these high-level philosophical matters. Now you understand why Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri told that yoga is the mother of all religions, yoga is the mother of all sciences. Why did he tell? I hope at least now you will understand. It is 9:05 now. I still have to talk a lot more about the rightmost column. And I have to tell a lot more about even the 4th column here. Now let me talk all that in the next session only tomorrow. So see you tomorrow. Until then, take care and goodbye.